Okay, so good morning. Welcome to this webinar, Why a Sustainable Travel Programme Matters, in partnership with SAP Concur. Whilst we're waiting for more people to join, I'd like to ask you to respond to the poll that I've launched. If you go down to the bottom, you should be able to see the poll. Do you feel confident that you are already delivering a sustainable corporate travel programme? Yes, we're ahead of the curve, partly, but we need to do more. Not yet, change is rather slow, and no, we're stuck. So let's see, people are joining still and filling in the poll. And we'll just give it a few more moments so more people can join. And if you're just joining us, if you want to start by clicking on the poll. Now, this is good. Right, I know you guys can't see the results, so let's share the results. So we're going to end the poll. Is everyone? Yeah, okay, right. Let's end the poll there because we've got some good results. And I will share the results. So we have 2% yes, we're ahead of the curve. Sorry, 8%, yes, we're ahead of the curve. 50% partly, but we need to do more. 31% not yet, change is rather slow. And 12% no, we're stuck. That's interesting to see. Okay, so let's go and start off. And I want to invite Hélène, SAP Concur, to kick things off. Hélène.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hélène Goumard from SAP Concur, and I have the honor to lead an amazing team of solution consultants supporting all EMEA markets within different areas of expertise, among which travel and sustainability. In this area, we want to be enablers. So that's really our mission within SAP. Which means that we want to find the most suitable solutions for our customers to reach their required business outcome, including a sustainable spend program, which of course includes the corporate travel, obviously. In addition of being an enabler, we also want to be exemplar. So in addition of all these different solutions that we are bringing to life to help and support our customers, we are also leading the way, trying to be as exemplar as possible, whether it is on the company side or individually. And for example, I'm part of an employee sustainability champion network that is favoring this exemplarship.
Thank you. Let's go around and introduce the panelists so everybody knows who they are. Asif, let's start with you. And as you introduce yourself, please tell us a little bit more about your role and also what a sustainable travel program means to you.
Right. Okay. Ooh, a little bit of a tough one to start with. Okay. My name's Asif Din. I am Sustainability Director at Perkins & Will. Perkins & Will is a construction design company, essentially. So we do everything from country master planning right down to corporate interiors. As my role as Sustainability Director, I'm looking across a whole portfolio of projects of what we actually do, but also how we conduct business. And part of that is science-based targets, a range of other things to actually quantify what our impact is. A major part of that, as part of a design company, is actually the travel component. And when we look at sort of like thinking about what a sustainable travel plan is it's setting up the boundaries. It's actually saying, what are we measuring? Where are we going? What are we doing? What do we need to do? And the first step is always the measurement, but it's actually finding out what those boundaries are and then seeing how those carbon reductions can actually be reduced.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us. Suzanne, should we come on to you?
Yeah, thanks, Sam, and lovely to be here. My name is Suzanne Bauma, and I am Head of Partnerships and Programs at Neste, and Neste is the world's largest producer of sustainable aviation fuel, and there you can make the direct link, obviously, to sustainable travel programs. Maybe fun to know that Neste is compensating all its own corporate travel already through our sustainable aviation fuel, so a good learning curve, I guess, and something we can replicate, and happy to expand on that later.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing more as we go through the webinar. Samit, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us what a sustainable travel program means to you too.
Yeah, so Samit Khandevarkar, Global Lead for Travel for London Stock Exchange Group. Now, we are the first stock exchange who's promised we are going to be net zero. And we believe in that. We truly believe in that. So first thing for us was data. We built up a very dynamic and a very rich data dashboard in terms of where are we traveling, why are we traveling, how are we traveling, and what are our targets. So if we have a target, what are we doing? And it's a dynamic dashboard. It's automated. It's updated every month. So we will know, okay, if we have set up a target for ourselves, a yearly target, how do we do month on month? And then we have put messaging when our colleagues try to book travel. We use SAP Concur and CWT. So we put a dynamic messaging that if they downgrade themselves, from business to premium or a premium to economy, what kind of savings do they achieve? We put messaging in Concur where if you're trying to book a flight, but there is a train route available, it prompts that there is a train route available. Can you please go and click the train tab and start using train travel wherever possible? And I think the next step would be carbon budgets. We are just there. Sustainability, we have 3 teams internally who are leading the program. I lead for the travel vertical, and a lovely guy reporting to me, Wayne. He's in charge for the day-to-day program management of the CO2 functionality. We've got carbon credits. I'm not involved in that, but that's managed at the CEO level, top level. We are really focused, and I think we are going to make a difference.
Oh, it's good to have you here. Thanks for sharing that. And let's pass over to you, Jacqueline.
Sure. Thanks so much, Sam. My name is Jackie Kidd. I am the global lead for responsible travel consulting for CWT. So I helped develop and now lead the team that would deliver any sort of responsible solutions. The reason why we call it responsible and not just sustainable is our definition of sustainability in a sustainable travel program is going to be one that focuses on reducing carbon impact while monitoring costs, because at the end of the day, business travel is supposed to support business growth and not deteriorate or make it worse by the cost going up too high, too fast. And all doing that while making sure that we're thinking about the person behind every trip and making sure that the well-being of those travelers is considered when making sustainable decisions. So we take a more triple bottom line approach to sustainability in every kind of travel recommendation that we put together.
Thanks. And myself, I'm Sam Candy. I am the CEO of Responsible Futures, and we like to educate and guide and inspire people to be more sustainable and socially responsible. You can see my business partner actually is putting some links in the comments, and she'll share any links throughout this webinar with you all. We're here because we're talking about sustainability, but travel is obviously a big part of business. So, I wanted to really look at the impact of travel on the planet. We've got COP27 next week is the largest event when it comes to climate change in the world. But Asif, couldn't you talk to us more? You live and breathe sustainability. What is the impact of travel on the planet?
It's a huge amount because quite rightly we're all focusing on aviation, because that is a huge amount, and we're looking at different ways of reducing. As Samit said, that we're trying to reduce down, and we make sure that we're trying to use alternates as much as possible. But that is just not feasible sometimes within business. It's we do have to do face-to-face meetings sometimes, but it's actually that impact is our biggest impact as a design company. Second is actually HVAC and effectively the buildings that we're actually in, and then it becomes employee employee commuting and other bits and pieces. But it's a number one. So we need to tackle it, and we need to actually understand what's going on. As a professional consultancy, it's a major thing that's on our radar, and how to actually reduce that and reduce that to zero in terms of a science-based targets approach.
Suzanne, do you want to also answer that question?
Yeah, maybe just to add on, and obviously echoing that for service companies, a lot of the emissions will be from moving their people around to deliver those services, and will continue to be essential. But just taking maybe a little bigger view here on the role of aviation in its emissions. Today we're looking at about 2 to 3%. However, growth is not stopping, and other sectors are decarbonizing very quickly. Whereas for aviation, it's as we'll get into later, quite a challenge still today. So looking at the growth of aviation into 2050, we're looking at a doubling potentially of the fuel needs, and as other sectors are decarbonizing and aviation not that quickly yet, aviation's portion of overall global emissions could be at about 20% compared to the 2 to 3% that we're referring to today.
Thanks. That's a large amount, isn't it? I think one of the things that people are probably here for is to understand how we measure our emissions. You know, it's a big challenge. I've done it with some companies myself, and finding those emissions. Helen, how do you think the best way to measure, and what can they measure?
That's a very, very good question. Actually, you're right. We can't manage what you can't measure. So that's the starting point. As business travel falls into the scope 3 emissions, that could go up to, I think, depending on the industry, it can go to 80, even 90% sometimes of the total emissions. For this, I would really encourage each and every company to get equipped, to have full visibility on what is your spend, and what are your T&E data. And I could only encourage you to have a T&E platform that would not only look at travel, but the entire spend, because we know on the travel side, we are looking at planning. And when you are having expense, you have the accurate data of what has been effectively spent. Once you have the visibility on the data, of course, you need to get it converted into your carbon footprint, determined into CO2 equivalent. I don't want to go into the details of it, but basically for air, rail, car rental, but also mileage, you would have the biggest weight into your emissions. And once you have this visibility, then you can only set clear targets that could be short, medium, and long terms. But the idea is really to make sure that you have this identification of these biggest emission areas within your current footprint, and then you can act slowly but surely on each of them.
Thank you. Jacqueline, you are part of the TMC, and a lot of organisations use, sorry, someone's just asking what is T&E, it's travel and expense. But Jacqueline, from a TMC point of view, obviously you're working with multiple partners and clients. What about with you? How do you work with your clients to measure carbon emissions?
Yeah, so I think building from what Helen said, visibility is key. I think when we start the conversation with our clients around data, CO2, it's the same conversation we used to have about cost. And the first thing is, do you have a full picture? Travel programs have always been known for having a lot of leakage. And so, you know, that's a huge issue that we try to tackle with our clients, because if you're building baselines and you're setting science-based targets off of those baselines, is that the fullest and complete amount of data? So we have a lot of discussions around that, complete data. Then we talk about data accuracy and the type of methodology you're using. And, you know, depending on the methodology, the same exact flight, same exact seat, cabin class, could be a completely different number. So as accurate as that methodology could be is really important as well. We have adapted a more advanced methodology. We feel it better suits travel and the specific needs of travel. So we work with a partner to do so, to provide that kind of added level. I I know a lot of people were using DEFRA for a long time. I don't think that cuts it in the travel space anymore, because we've learned that we need more. And what I always tell my clients is, we're going to look back hopefully on this methodology and the initial strategies today in like 5 years time and laugh, hopefully, because that means we've made even more progress, right? If we can look back and be like, oh, we thought we knew everything then. So we talk about that. And then the last thing I always try to do is translate CO2 data. Just think of it like a cost, right? Because everyone understands the value of a dollar. So let's start thinking about it that way. Let's view the total, but let's look at things like CO2 per flight or per kilometer or per room night, and look at that carbon intensity figure and start to look at it as if we were looking at an average ticket price or an average room rate, because then we can start to try to get down each of those trips to a more sustainable number, so that if your travel program does grow, you're not now superseding your reduction kind of goals and targets. So that's really the way when we measure, we focus more on the carbon intensity even at some point than the total number alone, because we know that intensity number is what we really need to get down if we want businesses to sustain.
Thank you. Brilliant feedback. Thank you very much. Asif, we've had this conversation many a time before, quite a while ago, actually. It can be quite challenging, when you're within the company. What have you got anything to add about going through the process?
Well, it's just to reiterate what everybody else has said. First point is measure, just see what the actual picture is. But sort of like, we can all put in plans, and I'll give you a good example of a plan that I've put in place and failed. Okay, we had a look at our travel policy, and we actually started to define what sort of radiuses we should be looking at in terms of rail travel or car travel as opposed to air travel. Now, one of the ones that I highlighted was our Dublin flight. We have a project in Dublin. People were flying backwards and forwards. I did the research, looked at the amount of time that you spent in an airport, amount of time traveling to the airport, and I said, yeah, if you do it by rail travel, you're talking about an hour more. So I put in an incentivization program for employees to actually say, look, you're not going to get penalized for that hour. You could have that as some sort of credit in terms of leave, so that I actually set something in place. British rail system, as the British rail system actually is, that failed on 3 different occasions, and effectively client was unhappy, our designers were unhappy, so we had to revert back to the aircraft, unfortunately, and doing a short haul aircraft, which, sort of like, you can put things in place, and it's good that we actually did it. What I don't want to say to people out there is, don't be discouraged by that. If you learn that you have actually failed on that, there is a reason why, and hopefully we can revert back to that rail travel. But I've reduced the amount of flights that are actually happening to France, to Switzerland, exactly on the same process, because we have clients there, and we've been actually able to reduce that down at no penalty to the employee and no penalty to our clients.
I think that's important. That, we're talking about a sustainable travel program, and the point is that you still need to meet clients, and you still need to build a sustainable economy, and I talk about that often as well. So the fact is that you tried it and you looked at it, and that's what everyone needs to do, really look into what they're doing and where their emissions are coming from, and make those amendments where they can. So thanks for sharing that. I want to understand a little bit more from your point, Samit, what the role of the business travel procurement manager is in sustainability. I mean, we've got you here from the travel point of view, and obviously Asif from sustainability, but from the business travel procurement management in sustainability, tell us a bit more about your role.
So a travel manager, it depends on the organization. You have an organization where a procurement team will lead the procurement, sourcing, operations, everything. or you have organizations where the procurement team sits separately, and then you have a travel operations team. Now, I'm in the travel operations team. I lead the travel program. We have a sustainability program, plus we have an ESG program. So there are two programs running. Now, my job, and there are glide paths. So we've set glide paths for each department. Facilities have a glide path, travel have a glide path, supply chain have a glide path. My glide path was first to identify data, and the data should be vetted, checked. So we have signed up for the Greenstone platform, and all the data, travel data that comes from CWT, we anonymize it. We put it in the way Greenstone requires us to do it. We have standardized, the measurements, and we put it in Greenstone. Parallelly, we've built a Power BI. I have a lovely guy reporting to me. He sits in Sri Lanka in my team. He's in London at the moment. What we have then done for us is we first tracking our CO2 against the company-wide goal. Okay, we are then breaking it into travel activity trends. How many point-to-point journeys are we taking? How many, projected number of point-to-point journeys for the rest of the year? Carbon emissions, projected carbon emission, total distance travel. Then we have built an amazing report in Travel BI that is take rail over air. So we are identifying the sectors where we can book rail easily in Concur or with our travel management company, and where colleagues are taking air and why are they taking air. We have built up something where we are showing if we reduce business class usage to either go to premium economy or economy, how much we will save in terms of carbon. Then we have broken down a data where we show purpose of travel, how much who is traveling for what. And then the last one, what we've done is we've mapped expos. Like if we have 10 C-levels, how are the business units under them traveling and why are they traveling? We've also done an amazing dynamic messaging in Concur, where if you log in, you're trying to book a flight, it gives you a dynamic messaging that voluntary downgrade can reduce your carbon footprint by X amount. And we've given the percentage there, and it's dynamic. And then we update it every month or every week, depending on how things are changing. My role as a global travel head is also to give sustainable options, ensure that the options are there either via the OBT or via the TMC. So keep on working, not get bogged down. Okay, some of the technology is outdated. You can't put something in the technology. That doesn't mean that the TMC can't book it. And I have a clear, detailed process mapped on how they can book, how they can travel, and communication is a major part for me. So I have a travel glide path. I have my first deliverable was the dashboard, and if we've got an amazing dashboard. Sam, I'll show you. I'll schedule a call with you and I'll show you what we have done, and it's vetted, and the numbers are vetted by Greenstone and also by my audit team. So now we are showing we are traveling in a particular way. We are emitting so much of carbon. If we change our travel patterns, what will that do? And then our target is net zero. Also, we are showing digital first, or you have Zoom, you have Microsoft Teams. So which team is traveling for what? And we have built up in Concur. We also have built up something in Concur where the first question we ask, if required, can you show approval from your manager that your manager is allowed your travel? And they have to select the drop down, and we capture all that data in the backend.
That's great. I think, that shows that from the travel point of view, you're really working and thinking about the sustainability. Asif and Samit, do you think that you're finding more now in your positions that you are working together with the travel and procurement with sustainability and sustain the other way? Asif, do you have a good relationship, and do you work closely, and do you have many conversations with the person that manages your travel?
Yes, we actually have a travel agency that I've been talking to as well, and sort of like sort of like echoing what Samit says, effectively as his role. We actually do that, and we outsource that to a travel agency. So even if it's a flight, I ask them to actually not just look at cost. I actually ask them to actually rank stuff in terms of comfort. So it's the well-being aspect in terms of the employee, and also in terms of carbon, so that we can get a holistic picture and make a reasonable decision on what gets booked.
Yeah, that's great. I just wanted to launch another poll here. We spoke about engagement. So hang on one second, let's have a look. Right, so Do you receive boardroom support for the design and implementation of your sustainable travel program? I'm just going to launch that and get some idea from, because it's, you know, when we're talking about sustainability, it really needs to come throughout the company, and engagement, I think, is a big part of that. So we're getting the results through now. I think that's as many as we're going to get. Oh no, it's changing. If you click on the poll, and just to also say, if you do have questions, then please put them in the Q&A at the bottom. I will be asking some of the questions throughout the webinar, but might not be able to get all through all of them. So I'm just going to launch this results of the poll. So 53% said they do receive boardroom support. That's really good, actually. 23% no, and 23% said yes, but not enough. As we talk about engagement, I'm really interested to know, Jackie, from your point of view, if you want to talk a little bit more about how we engage with travellers.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that that poll, it surprises me a little bit, because I think maybe I end up talking to my clients and travel managers maybe at the start of their journey, where they haven't gotten the boardroom support, but that's really great because that is where it starts. But with engagement, you know, we always say if for it to succeed in travel, it definitely has to be top down. You know, you need the leaders of the company to buy into the strategy and know that there could sometimes be costs behind that, and it's a mentality change. But you need the bottom up, right? Because for anyone on the call that doesn't come from a complete travel background, the very unique thing about travel is that it is a kind of procurement category unlike any other, in that, you know, if I procured energy for my office, if I don't like it as an employee, I'm not going to come in with my own flashlight, right? But in travel, if I don't like the choices that have been made on my behalf, I could technically make my own. So the buy-in from every member of the company is so vital to your strategy succeeding. And so we say that it starts with education, and really in the topic of sustainability, I think people want to make the right decisions. They're not always in a place to want to give up their comfort. And so you really have to put the case forward to them. So we say with traveler engagement, it starts with education, and putting a little bit more what we call the what, the so what, and the now what behind every communication that we make to travelers. So a CO2 footprint, let's say on your Concur booking tool, that's a wonderful start. That's the what. The so what might be the message that comes after that says, did you know that your carbon footprint for this quarter is the equivalent to 50 acres of a forest burning? That's the so what. That's the impact that a traveler would say, oh, wow, I didn't realize that, you know, choosing to take that trip or choosing to fly premium instead of economy made that big a difference. And the now what would be the educational piece after. So don't assume that people know how to be more sustainable. This is a new field for everyone. And if you're not like some of us that have the privilege of speaking about such an important topic daily, like, don't make the assumption that everyone understands. So we give them that guidance and advice. The second thing about traveler engagement, if I could just take one more moment of time, is let's think about psychology. This is a new topic, and so when you're developing tools and you're developing communication, you know, icons can draw in quick and fast decisions and understanding. Color schemes, you know, you put something in green, people automatically know that means more sustainable. Even things like percentages, people understand percentage figures probably more than they do just a normal CO2 footprint number. So when we're thinking about how to engage travelers and how to make them understand the messaging, let's think about how humans think, and let's try to appeal to that when we work on our traveler engagement schemes. So that's what we do within CWT and Solutions Group.
Thank you. Damit, as you know, as a global travel manager, do you engage with your travellers about being more sustainable and making more sustainable decisions?
So the messages come from top, company wide, that we need to be sustainable, and as I told you, we have flat parts. We have travel, we have facilities, we have supply chain, and each responsible business head is then responsible for communicating or drilling it down. So our first was dynamic messaging, which we have done in Concur. We've identified the data. We now have a dashboard. Now we are going to go and first validate the numbers, with Greenstone and with the auditing team. Okay, this is what we are presenting. Please validate it. And then we will go to the expo stating that, okay, this is the dashboard we have. Now we need to start engaging with different departments, business unit or cost centers. And then we will start, telling them, okay, do you want a dynamic dashboard created for you, where you will see, what your team is traveling or contributing to the carbon footprint? And the third would be carbon budgets. And the fourth would be then putting some approvals if somebody is trying to book business class, okay, which we haven't done till now. Right now, it's a subtle messaging. The Concur messaging is worked out very good. I'm just, I can't share my screen, but I would have showed you the messaging. It's a dynamic messaging in Concur. Also with the train, that, okay, if you downgrade voluntary, you downgrade, we're doing voluntary. And then after certain time, we will start hitting them hard. Okay. Then we will put certain approvals for certain level of people traveling. Okay, your manager needs to approve because we've given them certain carbon budgets, and then you need to adhere to that.
Thank you. Just if anybody does want to see those screenshots after, if you get in touch with Helene, I'm sure she'll be able to show you demos of what it looks like. So please, we did share her contact details at the beginning, and we will be sending the details after this webinar. We've got a few questions that have come in, and I think it's worth some sort of going back. Someone asked that you use a partner because Jacqueline, DEFRA doesn't cover it anymore. They asked who you use, if you'd be able to, if it's possible, to share what other ways. See.
We use a company called Thrust Carbon, and so they're our partner. All of their data feeds into our CWT systems. And the reason we chose to make that decision, although we do still have DEFRA's methodology for clients who insist on having it, was there's factors around travel, especially in air, that need to be taken into consideration. And then I saw it in one of the questions or comments, but things like the greater warming potential or radiative force, however you want to call that. That concept of emitting emissions at higher altitudes, it needs to be taken into consideration. Things like the actual distance flown and not just averages, the type of aircraft. If our suppliers are going to put an effort in to renew their fleets and have the most efficient fleets possible, it should be taken into account. And those are the kind of things that a more advanced methodology can offer. That the more standard DEFRA of the past or ICAOs weren't able to provide, and we wanted to have that extra layer for our clients.
And I believe that's a partner of Concur as well, and available.
We are, yeah.
That's correct. That's correct. And actually, as of methodologies, I think you have a lot that are available, probably one per market. And there are these standards that are DEFRA. We are, of course, leveraging the expertise of partners like Thrust Carbon to enrich our partner ecosystem, because we don't have this legitimacy. This has to come from these experts who are our partners. But I'd like also to mention that you need also to inquire within your company what is the calculation method that you would like to leverage overall, not only for business travel, because ultimately the scope 3 emissions would go in with your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions in your entire sustainability reporting. So you shouldn't be isolated here, even if, of course, you need to have this area of expertise on the business travel side.
Okay, thank you. Another question that came in, and I think this is really an important question. People are saying travel agents and online tools get paid to sell travel. How can we trust that they are telling us the best ways to reduce our footprint? Do you want to take that, Jacqueline?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I mean, look, it's a fair question. I guess maybe I have my rose-colored glasses on in life, right? I'm here to lead our industry and be one of the leaders in our industry, understanding that we have a role to play and we have a responsibility to play. I think let's not forget that although we're corporations, we're also people behind it, living on this planet with our own kids and grandkids who want to be able to love our industry and be proud of it and know that we did our best for them. That's why I come to work every day. But I'd also say from a corporate standpoint that like our clients are too smart to try to pull the wool over them. They want to see success stories. They want to see numbers of, actualized improvements and figures of how we are actively working to help our clients reduce. And some sort of make believe, it's just not going to work. Our clients are too smart. We have too much respect for everyone out there to try to pull something like that. No one will get away with it. So the work that we're putting in is legitimate. Because we would never want to be the company who tried to make everyone a fool of it. So I think it's about having the right intentions, and when you partner with the right partner for you, you should actually just trust in them that they're doing the right thing for the right reasons.
Yeah, Helen, did you want to add anything there?
Well, obviously, the thing is that it is critical that you get also that you partner with the partners that you trust, and as part of sustainability program, it has to be part of how you pick and select your partners. The other thing I'd like to say is that it's, being agnostic and being neutral is a key focus of SAP Concur. And another illustration and concrete example is that you have access to the same tools that we do have to administrate your solution. So at any time you have this ability, whether it's your TMC or yourself, depending on the reseller or direct agreement, but you would have the ability to do the settings on your own and to do it potentially guided with our support.
Thank you. And I would also add that, the companies that you're choosing to work with also have their own net zero ambitions. And if they're not working with you, then they're not going to get to their, scope 3 is a big part of those emissions. And if they're not helping their clients, then it's going to raise theirs. So I think that, when it comes to it, SDG 17, if I remember, collaboration, and we need to collaborate together when it comes to being more sustainable. I think that leads on to my next question for you, Samit, and for you, Asif, as well, actually, is when it comes to the RFPs and the tenders, what kind of questions should we be asking in those RFPs to ensure that we're working with sustainable suppliers? Samit, do you want to start off with that?
So it's complex, right? We need to break down into TMC RFP, hotel RFP, and airlines RFP. In airlines RFP, you can ask the relevant questions. You can ask on sustainable fuel. You can ask on newer aircrafts. You can ask a lot of things because airlines are a bit mature. Hotels, it's a bit difficult. There is no benchmarking, standard benchmarking in terms of, how do we come to the hotel data and how sustainable they are. But we do ask questions, is it a greener hotel? What do you do in terms of your linen, or what products do you use in the hotels? And we are trying to use those sustainable hotels, which are changing. When it comes to TMC, we deal with CWT for a long time. I think sustainability and carbon was not a focus when CWT came in 5-6 years back. But whenever we'll do a next RFP, we will, if we do, we will ask the TMC, how are you going to support us and help us in a sustainable journey? Or what are the kind of, focus you have, or what is the technology you provide or the reporting you provide? there's one size doesn't fit all. It's still in initial stages, but I think you should understand your travel program well, and then you can ask those questions. Also, it depends on a corporation. Some corporations are very sensitive and are very focused with sustainability. Some of them still are not. So again, it depends on, you know, what your model is or what your top guys want you to do. But we are asking the relevant questions and working with the procurement team.
Asif, do you have anything to add to that?
That's just such a comprehensive answer. I don't know. I got much to add, but from a personal point of view, we don't really have RFPs, say, to airlines or to hotels. We have a travel agency and then we select from those solutions. But if we have a supplier, for example, we will ask the question, how are you going to come to our site? How are you going to come to the site of the project? When? What are you going to do? At what points? So thinking about maybe the RFP that we're actually responding to rather than the ones that we're giving out, it's important to define what we're going to provide in terms of travel. And we're trying to, you know, everybody during COVID survived effectively not meeting. And we did everything over this, over Zoom, over, you know, sort of like virtual conferencing. It's not ideal. And it's deciding where it is ideal and where it isn't. And we need to be looking more and more at that in terms of making sure that we're saving times in terms of travel, in terms of carbon, in terms of well-being of employees. But there are moments where we do need to, and it's defining those within the RFP that I think are quite important.
Yeah, I'm interested in, do your clients, Asif, ask you the question of how people are going to travel and what sustainability you're thinking about?
Quite honestly, we are completely small fry in terms of their radar in terms of carbon emissions. Mm-hmm. When we're talking about buildings, we're talking about less than 5% in terms of the, you know, sort of like the consultants' ways and modes of travel, because we're talking about, you know, bits of concrete, bits of steel, bits of glass, all of those other big pieces that we also measure in another calculation. So realistically, we have explored it, and we have sort of like given clients offerings in terms of saying that, you know, sort of like, if we do more sustainable methodologies, would you be interested in us as a consultancy trying to reduce that? But for that, we'll give you a quantification, and it hasn't really taken off. We're not quite mature enough yet to actually have that, but hopefully in the future we will do.
Yeah, I think as we get, sorry, Jacqueline, did you want to add something to that?
Well, I just wanted to add a point, because part of what we do in my team is actually procurement consulting for air and hotel and car rental. But I think what we're trying to convey to clients these days is also asking questions is wonderful, and it's the first step, but are you measuring them? And are they weighing into a decision? And when will that happen for your organization? And how much can you weigh them? I think that if we are expecting suppliers, our hotels, our airlines, to make significant changes to the structure of the way that they service us, we need to let them build a business case. And that comes through our commitments in our actual decisions. So we build out entire sourcing and procurement tools and processes that actually can kind of score answers and score suppliers in certain things they do. Like, are they partnering with Neste, and are they investing in us and SAF? You know, those are the kind of things we want to know. Or how much SAF intake do you have in your strategy for the next through 2030? And we can start to measure. So I think that measuring and starting to weigh in sustainability into the decision alongside commercials for procurement is the way to help transform the supplier side of the industry as well.
Thank you. That's really, like, we need to talk about SAF, and I think that that's going to be a big thing moving forward into next year. And Suzanne, we're really delighted to have you here. Before we go into the details of SAF, I wondered if, Suzanne, you can talk a little bit, because I'm sure there's some people that are attending, and, you know, we like to try and give as much information as if people, you know, aren't completely aware. When we talk about net zero, we talk about carbon neutrality. Can you just give a little bit of insight and simplify it as much as possible, Suzanne?
Yeah, thank you, Sam, and delighted to hear the conversation covering measurements, but also other modes of transport. But of course, when you have done all that, then there's still an element that you need to reduce, and of course that's why we're here. But to come back to your point, of course, we see all the commitments and the ambitions out there taking various wordings and shape, and it can be a little bit of a jungle. I think what's really important to differentiate here, without going into all the detail of the particular wording, because I think they're far more senior experts that can explain what's what. I think really important to distinguish between offsetting and reducing your emissions. And I've heard science-based targets being mentioned quite often. Also for Neste, that's the North Star, because it sets you on a very clear reduction journey. So where, of course, we have seen very ambitious offsetting programs, which maybe in simple terms means supporting a project that will plant extra trees somewhere around the world. What we really now need to look at is how do we actually reduce that remaining travel footprint after you've done all the right things, after you've done all the measuring that we know is in evolution. And I would also want to comment to not let the measuring or the absence of perfect measure stop us from taking action now, because we do really need all hands on deck to actually achieve the targets that we've set for ourselves in the sector. So hope that sheds a little bit of light on differentiation between actually reducing your footprint and then what remains, obviously, you can offset.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to highlight that. And you know, we see a lot of companies taking that choice to offset. Helen, you're nodding away there. Did you want to add something to that?
Well, actually, I couldn't agree more with Suzanne, also saying that you have to start and you shouldn't wait for everything to be perfect to start, because we know that this is a topic that is evolving with a framework, with regulations that are evolving, and we need to compose with it. So rather than waiting for having one standard for calculation method, one standard for this and this and this, well, we have to also work in this evolving and see what works, and having an iterative approach to make this happen. Well, for sure, companies that are starting now and are probably, I wouldn't say late, but that they are taking significant advantage over competition, even if it's this materiality today, this well, how we see this and measure this in the financial terms is probably more challenging as of today, but for sure in the medium term, that's going to be a real payoff.
For some people, they might actually not understand what SAF is, Sustainable Aviation Fuel. I always like to delve deeper into exactly what it is. Where does it come from? How much is available? Probably questions that you answer every single day, Suzanne. Do you want to share more about that? We're talking about sustainable travel programs, and I think that this is a big part of our future.
Yes, Sam, and yes, that's part of my daily conversation, and our role is also obviously to educate. So Neste has been producing and supplying SAF since 2011. So and also today, that means we are the world's largest producer. Is that enough? Certainly not. We still need to ramp up significantly, and would also encourage everyone to read the latest World Economic Forum Clean Skies for Tomorrow report, was just released 2 weeks ago, that has a really good overview. Maybe I can share the link in the chat later, on sustainable aviation fuel and its role also for corporate organizations. So really good piece, and have a look at that. We feel so being one of the contributors. Then back to SAF. So it sounds very nice, a sustainable aviation fuel, but what is it actually? So there are a number of ways to make SAF, and the way that we currently do that at Neste is by using feedstocks, and in this case, when we say feedstocks, that means raw materials that we actually need to produce fuel that is chemically exactly identical to its fossil equivalent, which of course is not the sustainable route we want to go. Delving a little bit deeper, when you then think about those feedstocks and the reduced footprint that they leave behind, as opposed to pumping new fossil fuels out of the ground that will end up into the air. What we do is taking, for example, used cooking oil, but also animal waste fat, and turning that through a very advanced refining process into something that's indeed chemically identical to jet fuel. And that can be mixed and blended in the same infrastructure. It can be used in the same aircraft engines, and therefore is a really the solution also for at least the medium to long term to decarbonize aviation. And if you look at the numbers, about 65% of the sector should be relying on SAF to do this. Obviously, there's lots of talk also around hydrogen and electric flying, which of course we should be encouraging, but those are really, really still far out. If we just look at the European Union and the amount of green hydrogen that was produced this year, I mean, that's a speck, and just putting it out there, but the energy crisis certainly isn't helping if you think about the massive amount of green energy that would be required to produce these alternative fuels other than SAF. So SAF's here today. We have quite a bit of it, although not enough. Good story is that I think Neste is taking its responsibility and ramping up its capacity by about 15-fold into next year, and that's really exciting. So our refineries in both Rotterdam and Singapore will start producing a lot more sustainable aviation fuel. But to put it in context, I mean, that will still just get us to a number of percent of the overall fossil fuel needs that we have as an aviation sector. So sector really needs to grow and ramp up, and we need a lot more production capacity, and that requires everyone here on the call, and I see we have a great number of participants to all jump in and start supporting the sector to be able to meet the demand that we will be seeing going forward. So I'd really like to encourage everyone to have a look at, I mean, how practically can you then introduce that into your travel program and make that happen. Sam, you asked about how much is available. Our production capacity this year is 100,000 tons. I've already mentioned we're growing really quickly with a growth of about 15 times through to next year. And obviously the question that will arise is these waste fats and residues that we currently use to make the product, how much of that is there, right? How much restaurants are churning out used cooking oil, and what waste can we collect from around the world? So that is a big question, and our current estimates are that there's enough of this particular raw material to reduce about 10% of overall fossil fuel needs. So that's still a massive amount if you think about the volumes. Overall global fuel needs for aviation are about 300 million tons today, and if we can reduce about 10% of that with or replace about 10% with that with SAF, I think that's great. That's still not enough, so we need other technologies to come into play. We'd also need to look at other types of feedstocks, and we're doing some really exciting work to look at, for example, the use of algae, but also the use of domestic waste. So what you have in your bin at home, how can we extract what's needed to turn that back into fuel? So really, really exciting, but these are not ready today, and I think we should adopt what's there today and then take it from there.
I know that is such amazing insight, and I know that people are always going to ask, okay, can I just say, right, I want to fly with sustainable aviation fuel? I've asked you that before many a time, and I think it's worth having the conversation publicly. How can you include SAF in your programs? How do you get to fly on sustainable aviation fuel, or even can you?
Yeah, there are a number of ways currently available. So most of you would know that some of the airlines that, of course, are purchasing sustainable aviation fuel from us directly are already including that as an extra option. You might have to look really carefully to find it, and it might be consisting of a point percentage that's actually then blended into the overall fuel mix. So there are some steps already taken by the industry, and that's really great to see, and that needs to continue. However, there are also more more direct ways, given that this is such a new product and lots of questions pertain around indeed, where does it come from? How do you report it? How is it made? What can you say? What can't you say? How's the calculation done? We have also developed a program where we interact directly with corporate customers. So we're very proud to, for example, support Boston Consulting Group in their sustainable travel program. But we also have, I think, a world's first partnership with another TMC to enable their clients to take advantage of the sustainable options that are being offered and directly then procure sustainable aviation fuel. So what happens then is that, assuming that the measurement has been done in a way that everyone's happy with it, you will have a certain ton CO2 footprint that you'd like to reduce. And that's really what we would then take to be able to work with and introduce the sustainable aviation fuel to reduce that footprint. And I think it's really exciting that we've been able to set that up. It's really exciting to see the interest and uptake, and encourage everyone to keep an eye on, the types of partnerships that we're engaging in to bring the fuel closer to indeed those that are needing to make those reductions on their programs. And there's still a huge learning curve that we're on, and supporting organizations in that learning curve internally, always also up to the boardroom, questions being asked, how to do it. We're very happy to support in that process.
I'm sure if anyone reaches out on LinkedIn to you, that you'll be able to share more information into that. We really appreciate that that description, and thanks for being here with us today. We're coming to the end. We've got a few more minutes, and I just want to go round and finish with best practice tips on a sustainable travel program. Might be something that you've already said that you want to highlight. Asif, let's start with you.
It's communication. Yeah, it's sort of like, it's been covered before, but effectively you can't have the driver just from the top. You also have to have it from the bottom, and people have to understand why you're doing it.
Thank you. Samit, do you want to jump in? Best tips?
Understand your travel program. Okay, one size doesn't fit all. Understand the sectors you travel, and can you really provide a sustainable option? Because you need to provide an option, right? You can't just say we need to have a sustainable travel program. And then data. So if you understand your data, I think that's the key to all your problems.
And Jacqueline, do you want to add your tips?
Yeah, well, everyone covered my biggest one, which was don't wait for perfection to get started. But I guess what I'll say is, in the topic of sustainability, I don't think that there's room for competitive advantage. So we all need to be helping each other, supporting each other. Within my industry, if my competitors at Vito or American Express come out with something new, maybe in any other topic, it would be defeating that we didn't come out with it first. But in sustainability, I get really excited because it lifts. And so I think the more we can collaborate on this topic, and we can join in on discussions today. So thank you for having me, because I was able to learn so much and share so much. This is what brings us up a notch and lifts us all. So I think that's the biggest thing, is keep talking and keep all putting our minds together.
I absolutely agree. Suzanne, do you want to add anything? Your best tips?
No, I think it's been said before, start now, take action, and there are solutions out there, and we all need to come together to show that next year we're not here at the same place where we were, and move forward on those ambitions that are out there.
Thank you. And Helen, I want to finish with our partner for this webinar. If you want to close us up, what would be your tips?
So actually, it would be hard to have only one. But if I may, I'd like to have maybe three. The very first one is to get equipped, get the visibility, and also don't underestimate the power of some solutions. So we discussed about T&E, travel and expense. Here, I really want to insist into this, because the corporate travel is evolving also and is coming it is probably touching entire mobility of the company. So most recently, we are seeing some ways of managing car fleets being replaced by expenses. So you have a budget that you can expense for an entire year in order for you to be more flexible on your mobility, and you expense it as you want with no longer a car. So that's one area of thought. Mileage I mentioned. So really, there's plenty of solutions available, and you may not be aware of all these features. The second one is it's an iterative approach. So let's get started and let's learn from it. As soon as you have your carbon footprint, you can see what is the top 2, 3, set your goals, and be patient. We all know that the target is 2050 with net zero, and let's see how little by little, but with real progress and monitoring, you will reach there. And the last one that I would say is that don't work isolated. I think to make this transition to sustainable business travel model, it is recommended to establish a partnership within your company. So sustainability resources, human resources, investors, and employees. We mentioned about engagement. Really here, I think it's important to leverage them because they can be so strong promoters. They can be distractors if you don't understand them properly. And actually, we launched some solution recently, whether it's user assistance by WalkMe or Concur Experience Optimizer, in order to understand better, to guide them better, and also get their feedback, understand why they are buying a flight instead of a rail, because you have operational data, but maybe with this experience data, this feedback from your travelers, from all employees, you will probably understand and co-build the right sustainable travel program. And this is within the company, but also outside. We mentioned about RFPs and how you pick the right partners, the right sustainable partners. It is extremely important because we are seeing regulation being more and more strict upon this topic, not only on the climate aspect, but also on the social aspect. I'm thinking of, I think it's called due diligence. I think within the UK, you have the procurement policy note. You have these two aspects, so climate and social. We emphasized a lot on the climate today because obviously we are in a sense of emergency around this topic, but it should also be correlated with the social aspect. So sustainable business travel means enabling people to conduct business while doing what is right for the society and the planet.
Thank you. That was fabulous. And thank you to all of the panelists. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to all of the guests that joined us today. Pretty much everyone stayed all the way through. So that says to me that the content was really on point. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to finish now. So thanks. And, just make sure you are more sustainable in everything that you do and act now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot. Bye.